Hello everyone, I'm Katherine and I'm the Untamable Shrew. I'll be answering the questions that you have asked the Pursued by a Bear team, and I'll be giving you my insights, my little words of wisdom, and most importantly, my arbitrary opinions on all of the questions that you've asked. So, let's get to the fun stuff because nobody wants to hear me babble, and let's answer some questions. And by let's, I mean me. Question number 1. Best and worst film adaptations of any Shakespeare play. The best film adaptation, in my opinion, of a Shakespearean play is the 1993 production of Much Ado About Nothing, and it isn't just because it has a world-class selection of actors, and I mean like Emma Thompson, who's fabulous, Michael Keaton, Keanu Reeves, Denzel Washington, and Kate Beckinsale. And I mean, those are some of the big name actors, but even the little, relatively unknown actors, they did a fantastic job portraying the roles that Shakespeare cut out. I really enjoyed that rendition of Much Ado About Nothing. It was very true to the actual play. And also, I enjoyed how rich the interpretation was because it was so full of emotion, so full of humor, and it was so refreshing because it's one thing to read these words and have a little chuckle, and it's another thing entirely to just see something and just think, wow, so this is how it's supposed to be said, and it's so much funnier to see it acted out as opposed to reading it, at least in my opinion. So I highly recommend it to anyone. I know this might not be the popular opinion, but the worst, in my opinion, the worst film adaptation of a Shakespearean play has got to be Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. Now, in case you don't recognize the name Baz Luhrmann, you might recognize the name of the person who played Romeo, which is teenage dreamboat Leonardo DiCaprio. And I love him to death, but I hated that movie. Ugh, it was absolutely terrible. I mean, I've got to commend the producers for the continuity of the modernness that they put on the classical tale. Like, that was very smooth, that was very fluid, and I think that was very well done. But the movie in and of itself was shaky. I didn't like how they pieced it together. I didn't like the spin on it, and I did not like Claire Danes as Juliet. I just cannot get my head around it. I can't absorb it. I can't. And that's the only thing I can really say about it, because I just have nothing else to say about that movie other than I would not watch it again for all the money in the world. Well, maybe some money. Question number 2. What would be your Shakespearean OTP, or one true pairing? I've always been a huge shipper of Mercutio and Romeo, because I think it's not so much a bro TP, because I mean, Shakespeare had a ton of bro TPs in his works. I mean, you can go through any play and you'll find a bro TP. Like, seriously, he has bros from here to kingdom come. But I don't think that's the case. I like Mercutio and I like Romeo together. I think it would have gone a lot smoother for Romeo and Juliet if Romeo had just ended up with Mercutio, everybody lives happily ever after, and you have your first Shakespearean homosexual couple. Unless you count the many homoerotic subtexts in his works, because there are a lot of them. Question number 3. Not to be a creeper or anything, but how old are you guys? Well, I'm as old as my tongue, and a little bit older than my teeth. Question number 4. Will you guys be reviewing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, the play? I would love to, if nobody else snaps it up, but I'm going to assume that one of us will, if not me in particular. Question number 5. Have any of you seen the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged? Did you like it? What was your favorite part? No, I haven't. I've actually heard a lot about it. I mean, I try to keep up with, plays, theater productions, and stuff like that. I have heard about it. I've heard really good things about it. wanted to go see it for the longest time, but I haven't had a chance to. If I had a chance to, would I? Oh, hands down, yes, of course I would. But as of right now, unfortunately, the answer to that is no. Number 6. Who do you think is the weakest male character? Romeo. Oh, I love a woman. Wait, I don't love her. I love someone else. I've never been in love. Blah, 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 blah. Shut up and stop whining. Oh my god! I hated him so much. Even when it was like cool to like Romeo and Juliet as like a little kid, I thought it was the most stupid thing I've ever heard, because that is just so dumb, and he does not even fit the bill for a hero in Shakespearean standards. I would rather date, oh god, I'd rather date Iago, and I hate Iago. I would rather date a villain than Romeo. The only thing I have to say about Romeo is that I hope he was a good kisser, because that's got to be the only thing that would make up for such an amazing whining ability. So, I really just don't like Romeo at all. Question number 7. Who do you think is the strongest... Question number 7. Who do you think is the strongest female character? I have to say I think Lady Macbeth is the strongest female character. And I know some of you who know the premise of Macbeth are saying, but wait a second, you know, she killed herself in the end, you know, out down spot, and she kills herself, she offs herself. So, how can she be the strongest if she didn't even have the strength to go on? Well, that's the thing. I would say that even with her suicide in the end, she was still by far and away the strongest female character that Shakespeare's ever written. Because I think her ambition, her drive, her ingenuity have put her in such a position to be the force behind Macbeth. I mean, Macbeth is essentially this little limp biscuit of a guy. Like, he's a little wet napkin. He's a little wet blanket. And then there's Lady Macbeth, who's seeing this opportunity, who sees that he could be a king, and that, hey, she could be a queen, and she's the one who pushes him to do this. And I know that makes her the villain and everything, or, you know, to some, it makes her the villain. I personally love her. But I think that, without a doubt, she is so strong, she is so powerful, and if she were born a man, I think the play Macbeth would have gone a lot differently. Especially since Macbeth probably wouldn't have married himself to a guy. Question number 8. Best villain? Not in terms of favorite character, but in terms of who you think is the most slimy and evil. That's a tough one, because I have a bad habit of kind of falling in love with the villains. Yeah, I know, it's really twisted, but that's just the way I roll. Anyway, I would have to say the most evil dude that Shakespeare's ever written has to be Iago. I just don't like him. He seems to be a truly and deeply huge jerk. He's just a huge jerk. I didn't like him at all, and I think he's pretty slimy and pretty evil. I mean, he's probably the most well-known for his sliminess and his evilness, but I mean, personally, that's my opinion. Question number 9. I know some of you guys like Harry Potter. Do you have a Pottermore account? And if so, what house are you in? Do I like Harry Potter? Do I like Harry Potter? Yes. To answer that question, yeah, I like Harry Potter a lot. And I was one of the beta testers to get onto Pottermore. Yeah, fat lot of good that did me, staying up until midnight to get onto a site and try and find the magical quill. Yeah, that was very pointless. But it's certainly something I can talk about for future generations, you know, when our grandchildren are born and we finally get to open the Deathly Hallows section of Pottermore. Anyway, so I took the test. I'm a Gryffindor, which is great because I just love Gryffindor, and I love the colors, and it's just my favorite. It's always been like the best house for me. Question number 10. How did Pursued by a Bear get started? Really, it was sort of a snowball thing. Sharky might be the best one to answer this question since I'm sort of a newcomer. So he might be the best one to tell you how exactly it got started. But as far as I know, it was sort of a snowball effect, picking up person after person, member after member, etc., etc., etc. So that's exactly how I see it. Question number 11. You guys are all so awesome. Thanks, Anon. You are too. Number 12. Who came up with the idea for Pursued by a Bear, and how was everyone recruited? I could be wrong, but I believe it was Sharky and Cassius that sort of kicked off the whole thing. Sharky was the one who recruited me. He offered me a chance to be a part of this, and I jumped. I just jumped. Number 13. What state do you live in? I live in a state of perpetual curiosity and wild ambition, aka somewhere in the Midwest. Question number 14. Favorite Shakespearean quote. Go! My favorite Shakespearean quote is a little bit unorthodox. It isn't so much that I like the meaning behind the quote. Well, that's not the truth. It's a little bit unorthodox. It's not one of Shakespeare's most famous quotes, but I love the way it sounds. I love its meaning. I think it's very clever, and I love it. I just love it. It's from Much Ado About Nothing, and Beatrice says, "He that hath a beard is more than a youth, and he that hath no beard is less than a man. And he that is more than a youth is not for me, and he that is less than a man, I am not for him." Question number 15. Do you guys think of Hamlet as 16, 30, a different age entirely? There's evidence on both sides. Just curious what you think and whether or not you all agree. That is really hard to say. Personally, I think that he's on the younger side of the scale because he kind of acts throughout the play like this spitfire teenager. And then at times he has this maturity that's beyond his years. But, you know, it seems more like he's this brooding teenager with rash decisions. So overall, I don't think he's old as 30. Not saying that 30 is old, but I don't think he's as old as 30. I don't know if he's as young as 16, but I would say he's closer to 16 than 30. I have no idea if the other Pursued by a Bear team members agree with me. That's just my personal opinion. I'm sure throughout this video, they'll have their own opinions. Question number 16. How did you all start liking Shakespeare? For me, it started with poetry. I've always been a huge poetry buff. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So one year for Christmas or Hanukkah, one of the two, my mom bought me a copy of Shakespeare's sonnets, and I got to reading them. And I know I was pretty young, so I don't know if I understood everything that I was reading. At first, the attraction to Shakespeare's writing was purely topical, and by saying that, I mean I enjoyed it for the way the words felt coming off my tongue, the flow, the music of it, the iambic pentameter, the way it fit to my heartbeat. I enjoyed that so much that I just kept reading it and reading it and reading it until my comprehension level grew to a point where I began to enjoy it and be attracted to his words in a deeper way, where I would appreciate his meaning as opposed to just simply the way the words sounded. And it all, you know, it took off from there. I started reading more by him, not just poetry, but his plays, and I started performing his plays, and I started watching performances of his plays and becoming very critical of the way his plays were done. And that's really how I started loving Shakespeare. I don't just like it, I love it. Who's your favorite Shakespearean character? Mine's Hamlet. Just curious to see who you guys like. I absolutely love Katherine. I absolutely love Katherine from The Taming of the Shrew. So much so that I took her name as my name to do these Untamable Shrew video blogs. So I just love her sass, her smart humor. She's got such a tongue on her. It is so great because, you know, she will not take anything from anybody and she'll dish it right back. She will not take an unrequited hit from anyone. And she doesn't believe that she needs anyone but herself, despite what society thinks, despite what her family thinks, despite what everybody else thinks. And that is what makes her just such a great character. I think she's very well-rounded, and I really relate to her. She's pretty much my spirit animal. So I just think that she's flawless. She's perfect. Or no. Question number 18. What do you think is the most difficult part about performing Shakespeare on stage? Answer, because I currently feel very comfortable performing Shakespeare on stage, but when I got started doing Shakespeare's works as an actual performer, I found that it was most difficult to capture the fluidity of his lines, of his words. And I'm not just saying that you have to understand how fluid it is, but you have to make it sound as if you were just talking. Because, I mean, this is not the way everybody talks anymore. Everybody talks differently now. But that's the thing. That's the thing about performing Shakespeare. You have to take it and you have to make it sound like this is how I talk every day. And that's pretty much the hardest part. For me, at least. Question number 19. What is your Shakespearean pickup line? Oh, man. I don't really use Shakespearean pickup lines, only because usually when I mention that I like Shakespeare, guys often run in the opposite direction. I love it when Rosalind in As You Like It says, woo me, come, woo me, for I am in a holiday humor and am like enough to consent. And she says this in As You Like It, and really a kind of a translation into modern English is she's basically saying, hey, come on, hit on me. I really don't care. I'm in a good mood, and I'm pretty much going to hit on you back. And I'm very likely to hit on you back. And I really like that. Very cute. It's very, very fun. It's very cute, and it's kind of fun. And I'm sure if I tried using that on a guy, I would end up alone with 15 cats. Which is probably how I'm going to end up anyway, so that's a pretty good incentive for me to try that out in public. Thanks, everyone! Number 20. Question number 20. What Shakespearean roles have you played? Have you ever directed any or were part of the crew? I was Lady Macbeth in my school's production of Macbeth. That was the only time my school ever did anything involving Shakespeare on stage, because really I don't think they were very fond of anything classical or beyond a 4th grade reading level. So yeah, Shakespeare did not grace our stage very often, but when it did, I snapped up the biggest role I possibly could. And question number 21. Worst Shakespearean stage performance you've ever attended? I have to say, my school's production of Macbeth. It was awful. The sets were bad, the props were bad, I was the only actor on stage that was doing a Scottish accent, and I mean, I wasn't even doing a Scottish accent, I was doing something close to a Scottish accent, but nobody else even attempted. So it was really bad. We got a really terrible turnout too. Nobody wanted to come see it. So I know that isn't technically me attending it, but I have to say that's the worst thing I've ever seen done to a Shakespearean play. It was almost blasphemous, and I nearly cried. Question number 22. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? What do you mean? African or European swallow? Question number 23. If you could cast Tom Hiddleston in a Shakespearean role that he hasn't played yet, which one would it be? Ideally, one where he would be shirtless all the time. I'm sorry, I am just so in love with Tom Hiddleston as an actor, as a person, as a speaker. God, he's just flawless human being. All the awards go to him. But to be completely honest, I think I could see him doing very well as Caliban and the Tempest. He's kind of got that sort of bravado that Caliban has, and I think that he could do that very well because he does sort of have that arrogant kind of, not swagger, so to speak, but he's got that drunkenness, kind of a drunk on arrogance feel when he played Loki in the Avengers and Thor. So I think he could do that very well. Also, Caliban has this sensitive, sort of inquisitive, very deep side to him, and Tom Hiddleston is everything, if not... And Tom Hiddleston has got to be one of the most able actors to play something that's deep and potentially emotionally... something that's deep and potentially emotional role. He does very well. He's got an incredible range of emotion as an actor, and really, I think he could play any role he wanted in a Shakespeare play, and I'm saying even a female role. Look at that face. Look at that face. He is a beautiful man. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So really, when you ask me that question, there are 1,000,001 answers. Question number 24. Which books have you recently read? I'm a huge reader, so really this is a tough question, but to narrow it down, I've been pretty obsessed with George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire series this summer. I really wanted to catch up in the TV series, and then as soon as I got done reading book 2, I was so enveloped in the storyline that I just kept on with book 3. But yeah, really, that's the only one that really comes to mind right now. 5. What are your favorite non-Shakespeare plays? Ooh, this is a good question. I'm a huge fan of Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller. I have both of their books of their entire collection of works. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just breeze through one in a night just because I want something fast, something good to read. And their plays read so well, and I'm able to latch on to the meanings so quickly that I just adore reading them. Thornton Wilder's another one. I love his play Our Town. That's pretty iconic and pretty common. That's pretty iconic and pretty unoriginal, but I've always been very attached to that, especially in the movie production of it, where... Question number 26. Question number 26. To the Untamable Shrew, is that an Illinois accent I hear? Winky face. First of all, we don't have accents. You guys have accents. We don't. And second of all, yeah, I've been told I have the good old Chicago accent, which I can't really hear because I just talk normally. I don't know what it is to speak without this. This is normal for me. This is how everybody around me talks. This is how I talk. So, if I have an accent, let me live in this fantasy where I don't have one. Question number 27. What is your least favorite play by William Shakespeare? I'm going to get hate for this, but I don't like Romeo and Juliet. I think it's the weakest of all his plays that he's written. Shakespeare's writings are so rich and so powerful. I don't think that Romeo and Juliet have quite met that caliber. I mean, as far as popularity standards go, that has got to be the most popular play that he's ever written, at least in the modern media. The spins that they put on it, you know, they play off of that so many times because it is a very common theme of star-crossed lovers, love that cannot be. So I understand why it's popular, but I don't like Romeo. I don't especially like Juliet. I don't like that play as a whole, and it's not so much that I hate it. It's just that I've seen and I've read and experienced so many more of Shakespeare's plays. I just don't understand why someone would prefer something that's so weak like that as opposed to something that's so strong as like Hamlet or, you know, Othello. Something like that. I'm talking about comparatively, it has probably got to be the worst. Question number 28. Question number 28. Were any of you a part of other projects together before joining Pursued by a Bear? Nope. This is my first one. I mean, I have another video. I reviewed Kiss Me Kate. You can find that on the Pursued by a Bear network. But as far as with the other members of the team, nope. Always done solo work. Question number 29. What was your first Shakespearean role? As silly as this sounds, I was actually cast as Helena in A Midsummer Night's Dream back in 6th grade honors English. We were going through sort of an abridged version, kid-friendly version of Midsummer Night's Dream, and they were handing out roles, and I kind of just shot my hand up, and I didn't really know who I was getting into, but I ended up being Helena, and I actually really liked her. I went back and I reread the play, not the kid version of it, but I mean like the actual hard copy of it, and I just love Midsummer Night's Dream. It's so whimsical and so beautiful, but I loved Helena. She's so nonsensical. She's just got this sort of childlike quality to her that just makes her kind of lovable, at least in my opinion. I liked her a lot. I would absolutely jump at the opportunity to play her again, even though I really don't fit the role of of Helena so much. I'm a little bit more outspoken than I was back then in the baby child 6th grade. So, which Shakespearean character would you like to hang out with? I have to say that I would really love to have like a 3-girl slumber party between me, Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing, and Katherine from The Taming of the Shrew. Because I think Beatrice and Katherine are essentially, they have some of the same characteristics, where they're both very snarky, they're both very sassy and witty, and I have that quality too, and I think they're so passionate. I think we could get into a conversation that would just last all night. We would have fun, we could just watch stupid chick flicks and like heckle the characters, because that's what I do, and I would love that. I think they're just great. I mean, I have huge literary girl crushes on both of them, but mostly because they're so similar to me, or I'm so similar to them, and yeah, I just think they're great characters, and I would love to hang out with them even for a minute, just to pick their brains. Question number 31. Why did you join Pursued by a Bear? I joined first because Sharky asked me to, and then I joined because he told me what it was about. I have such a deep love for reviewing, reading, and analyzing Shakespeare. And in general, old movies that pertain to Shakespeare or play off of the Shakespearean, like the key, the setting, that play off of Shakespeare's key bones for a storyline, such as Romeo and Juliet being used for West Side Story, or 10 Things I Hate About You as a method of, or The Taming of the Shrew being turned into 10 Things I Hate About You, which is, I just love that. I think that's so clever, and I think that's a great way to keep Shakespeare from becoming this old, dull, listless, never paid attention to kind of genre of writing. And I realize that Shakespeare is an author. He's not exactly a genre of writing, but he forever changed writing, so he deserves his own little cubbyhole in the grand scheme of authors, etc. So that's why I'm a part of this, because I just love him. Okay, question number 32, final question. How come you're all so photogenic? Personally, I don't think I'm that photogenic. I just kind of talk. It's fun. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm photogenic. I don't know if there's really a feeling for photogenicness. Photogenetics? I don't know. Really, it's just I have to assume that when Sharky uploads pictures of me to Pursued by a Bear, he uses some like extreme Photoshop tool that turns this mess into something that's somewhat presentable to the public. So, I know the rest of my Pursued by a Bear team members are gorgeous, flawless people, so they're photogenic because they're just perfect. So, that's what I can say about them. But me, I don't know. Alright, well, that's all I have for you, and I hope you enjoyed my answers. Come again, pick our brains again. We're happy to answer any questions you have. Make sure you check out my next video. I'm sure I'll be having one soon. And, I don't know, keep it clean, keep it green. See you later, everyone.